All right, folks, we're headed into our last round. Round 4 starts in about 9 minutes. It's 5:21 right now. Last round starts at 5:30. I went to McDonald's and got some fries and a Coke because I needed to eat something, but I wasn't really ready for a meal yet. It's not like quite dinner time, so this will make up for the fact that I'm gonna have a late dinner, like at 8 or something when I get home. Um, so feeling fine, ready to go in and try my hardest to play well in this last round. Unclear what I'll have. I've had two whites and one black, so in theory I should be playing black. And I'll play somebody that has either a half, one, or one and a half. We'll see which. Being high rated in this circumstance, I think, doesn't really buy you anything. I think it might mean that you play somebody harder rather than somebody easier. But I don't know how the pairings work for sure, actually, so maybe not. Anyways, it's been a wonderful day. I've really been enjoying interacting with y'all in the comments. It was fun to meet somebody in person here. The chess was good. The people were very friendly. It was a good time. I'm enjoying it. I am looking forward to the next time that I get to play. Maybe there's another one next weekend. I might be busy, but if I'm not, then that'll be a good time and I'll be back out there. All right, time to head in and do battle. See you guys.
Okay, last game of the day. I'm up because I met my first in-person fan, which was super exciting, but I'm down because I just lost a game where I just wondered a piece on move 10 and then had to just suffer forever. And I almost got stalemated, but I didn't, which is even worse than if there was no chance of getting stalemated in the first place. So we're playing back, and we're playing black against April Nee, who had I think she had a 1 point bye and then a win, and then a loss and then a draw. So she's not having the greatest tournament in the world, and she's rated mid 500. So now I've got to win, or else I lose way more rating points. So again, I need to be playing up. My role is e4. We play e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5. So this is the Ruy Lopez, and you respond to a6 because at some points you need to be able to kick this bishop out. My opponent responds bishop a4. At some points you need to be able to play b5 so that you don't end up losing takes and then losing this pawn, which could happen right away, but in these positions doesn't end up being the right way to respond for our opponents typically. If instead of the one that I'm familiar with is playing the exchange, where if b takes, things are bad for your opponent, so they play d takes, and then you don't take right away, you just castle, and then you're gonna have threats against this pawn, so they have to defend it, and then there are lots of things where you can end up with somewhat of an advantage. When my opponent plays the typical response to the Morphy defense, called the Columbus variation, and I play knight f6, attacking my opponent's pawn. They castle. Now, obviously, I could take right away, and if we look at the lines, that's certainly something that could be done. But I play bishop c5, sort of lining up here, and my opponent plays the typical response, which is c3, so they're plus 0.7 or something. And it is at this point that I need to be careful that they're going to remove the defender of this pawn and then move forward. So I play b5, and my opponent plays bishop b3. And then I play d6. And so I know that these positions are typically pretty boring, and then but I always feel like I never really know what I'm doing on the black side. But I figured this is just going to be an exercise. I usually sort of sleep my way through the beginning, and then I end up sort of down, and then it's just sort of a position where there's not a whole lot of life for me. So let's play really slowly. Now the computer says this is plus 0.7, but at the beginning of the game it already says it's plus 0.7 or so, I think. Yeah, plus 0.3, plus 0.4, yeah, so totally fine. So now this bishop, in theory, could reroute around. We've done some expansion on the queen side that our opponent isn't really going to be able to deal with. And our opponent plays d4. We play e takes, they play c takes, and I play bishop b6, just sort of keeping this bishop along this diagonal. My opponent has the better central structure. We have slightly more development, and this bishop is going to be able to come out no problem. So our opponent plays rook e1. They finally would like to take care of this hanging pawn. And I play h6 because I don't want this pin to happen. Which in theory could have happened at other points, but not when we're trading material. My opponent plays h3 because they're like, oh, that seems like a good idea. Your bishop was probably going to develop at some point. And I finally castle. So now my king is safe. Their king is safe. I haven't been too concerned. A lot of times the way that and let me go back and explain this again. If takes, this takes can happen. And a lot of times what I end up doing is I end up castling in a position where then this ends up happening. So I castle, they castle, and then they end up winning the e5 pawn, and I'm just kind of screwed. So we get to this point, and I finally castle, having successfully kicked this bishop out and sort of solidified my center, which I was pleased with. My opponent plays a4. And so I thought, I could take, but then they take, and now they're, where's this knight going to go? Probably something like knight e7, and now my pawn structure is weird, and their pawn structure is weird, and I have to sort of defend this stuff forever. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, what if I play bishop b7, and then they take? Well, if I take, then they can take here, and I can take with the queen. And this is exactly what happened in the game. So now I've got this really powerful battery going on. I can move my knight somewhere, and then have bishop takes. So I move my knight. It's their move. So move my knight somewhere. They play another move, and then you can play bishop takes, rook takes, queen takes, right? So obviously that would not be good for them. Now, obviously, this is still relatively cool because they're getting a knight out of that variation. But I'm like, yeah, I have no problem with this. Apparently, slightly better is to put your is to take with the bishop, and I'm not exactly sure why, but the computer is like, yeah, take with the bishop. Fine, sure, whatever. My opponent plays knight bd2. Now, this did not strike me as a particularly good move, and if you take a look, you know, white's about +1 here, and now it's about -2, and the reason is this bishop isn't doing anything, and you've removed one of the defenders of this pawn. One of the things that I had kept an eye on during this game is it was knight defending and queen defending, knight attacking and bishop attacking. So I was like, it seems like you just dropped a pawn. And I was like, is there anywhere that this knight can go that's going to like discover an attack that's going to matter? No. So I played knight takes, bishop takes, and this knight moves somewhere, and then I just moved my bishop back. In fact, my opponent, when I took with the bishop, didn't even move their knight. They played bishop c2, which I also didn't really understand. I guess they wanted to defend this pawn now, but they have the right number of defenders here. I guess that's the problem that they were trying to solve, is I'm going to end up with 2 attackers on this pawn, so how do I deal with that? So I just played rook e8. I was like, cool, now I have 3 attackers and you only have 2 defenders. So you got to find another place to do something. My opponent plays queen f3. And at this point I played d5. And the thing that I played d5. And the thing that I recognized is if pawn takes, then rook takes check. Obviously, you could play something like this, but then I'm taking your bishop, so that's no good. And if you move up here, I mean, easiest you can just play bishop e5 check, sort of consolidate yourself, and you're just up a clean rook. Like, there are no problems here for black. So my opponent can't take. So my opponent played queen b3, sort of saying, okay, well, I'll come get your pawn then. Why don't I come attack that? Now, obviously, the bishop is defended, so losing this pawn didn't really bother me that much. So I was like, yeah, okay, I'll trade you pawns. Like, this isn't... First of all, I could just play, like, here. But then when I do that, I, like, block my battery. And then, you know... Again, still can't takes because this happens. But, like, you know, I can do this whenever I want. So, in theory, I could protect that b5 pawn. But the computer agrees with me, actually. And just says, play d takes e4. Like, what are they going to do? Like, now you're lopping off this bishop. It can't do anything. Like, you don't care about this pawn. That's not a thing that matters. My opponent plays queen takes b5. And then the computer agrees with me again. This is plus 6.7. It says, play e3. Like, what are they going to... If they move the knight somewhere, then you can just take here with check. And, you know, you can't even take this because, like, it's defended by the bishop. And then you're going to be able to take this rook. And the rooks are shit. Like, this is just devastation. I mean, this is actually just mating. So, your opponent has to take. And then, apparently slightly more clinical is bishop takes check. And then I was like, yeah, but what if takes and then takes? And then I'm going to like figure out how to convert this position. And this is obviously clearly winning. I'm up in exchange and a pawn, and their king isn't particularly safe. But I was like, I feel like I'd rather have the bishop, because the bishop feels like it's mating and the rook feels like it isn't as much, which I think is wrong, actually. Yeah, takes, and then like this check is coming. And how's my opponent going to defend it? Like, here, and here or something, I guess. But yeah, this is just totally crushing. Like, what is this knight doing? Like, I can even do something like this, which is terrible. Anyways, f takes. I played rook takes. My opponent played rook takes. Then I played bishop takes check. And so now, first of all, if my opponent goes here, I can play check here. And then check here. Like basically just their king is completely out of the open. They're not going to be able to do anything. And if I can find a way to get this queen into the game, probably this is the easiest way to do that. Then I'm going to be able to come mate my opponent. So no problem. So that's part of the reason that I wanted to take with that bishop. But if king f1, which is something that I saw, and I was like, what happens? You know, and king h2 is like a similar-ish story where you can go here and then this, and then like, what are you doing? And probably the move that I would have played here is this, which gives up most of my advantage, actually. What does it want me to do? Queen a7. Oh, it wants me to get here. Here takes... Here? Oh, that's just mate. So that's why. So you can't even take that piece. So king h2 is probably more resilient there. My opponent played king f1, which is something that I saw. I was like, I don't know that they're going to feel particularly comfortable with all the weakness on the dark squares and a dark square bishop that's just terrorizing them. But in this position, I mean, first of all, the second best move is bishop takes d2. Or bishop takes d2. It wants me to play this? That's weird. I don't understand that. I played the thing that is tactically super obviously winning, which is just bishop here. Queen takes, queen takes. This is what happened in the game. And king e1. And so now it's two pieces. So a knight and a bishop. Here's a knight and a bishop. So there's a light square bishop for a queen. So if I can just trade the pieces off, I'll be in good shape. So the first thing I said is let's take. My opponent takes. And I play queen a1 check, thinking, okay, if my opponent goes here, then I'll be able to take this pawn. My opponent plays king e2. I'm able to take the pawn anyways. And now it's just a matter of sort of like cleanly trying to convert. My opponent goes here, trying to restrict my queen. I play queen b5 check. My opponent plays king c3. I play queen c6 check to come get this pawn. I want to like scoop up all the material, and then if I need to trade everything, then I can just get into a winning king and pawn game. I'm just trying to make sure that in the event that I play something dumb and lose my queen, like I'll still be all right. My opponent plays king b2. I take here. My opponent comes back because they want to defend their thing. And then I'm able to play knight e4 check, which forces a trade of some more material. Obviously, if my opponent doesn't trade here and they just go here, then I'm just taking this. Or even if they go here, then I'm still just taking this. Like, no problem. So they trade. My opponent plays bishop c1, which I'm not certain that I understand. I play queen f3 check to come pick up this pawn. King c4. Queen takes h3. Bishop f4. And then I play the brutal at this point, queen g4, pinning the bishop to the king, king c5 here. And now my opponent, this is actually interesting. I'm playing the fastest moves to mate here, which is pretty interesting, at least to me, because I always try to play a mate that I'm like comfortable with, not what the fastest thing is going to be. Stockfish is immediately at depth 99 because it's like lol, like this is mate. But my opponent's back here trying to get stalemated, so I go here. This is not stalemate because they can keep moving back and forth. My opponent goes king c8, and so now it's a little bit hard to figure out like what the right move is here. And there's only one move that mates the quickest, which is to play the longest possible move in the game, queen h1 to a8. My opponent goes to king d7, and I go here, which is checkmate. So we get a dub in the last thing in a position that I normally struggle to defend with this black. And if we look at the game review says I played 92.9 with 1 inaccuracy, and my opponent played 81.8. So I beat somebody that scored in the 80s by scoring in the mid-90s. And if you look at the conversion, it's just so smooth here. There aren't even any great moves. It's just like, look, he played the best move a bunch of times. And if we go see what that 1 inaccuracy is, it's, again, taking with the queen in the corner it doesn't like, which is whatever. Apparently that's mildly worse. But yeah, I was really proud of this one, guys. I felt pretty good about it because, having a rough tournament, had a couple rounds in a row where I had my chances and I totally messed it up. I was mildly winning in the third game, and in the second game I was actually just winning. And having thrown them both away, I was pretty disappointed. And so, yeah, it felt really good to come out and play something really smooth. And again, before we go to the rest of the things, some of the pre-recorded stuff, I just wanted to say I really appreciate all the engagement that I'm getting on YouTube. It really motivates me to come out and make some of these videos. I've been trying not to like edit them too quickly or feel too much pressure to get them out quickly because I only play so much chess and I try to keep this as a hobby and I don't want to get burnt out on it. But it is very exciting again to see how much of a response there has been. In fact, if I pull over what my YouTube stats have looked like over the last 90 days, just to show you guys a little bit, you can see, look at what's been happening recently here, guys. Like, this is huge. It's like there's not a lot of activity, and then boom. If you look at the watch time, not a lot of activity, and then boom. And this is for the last 90 days. If we look last year even, things are fine. You can tell in the last month, you guys have cared a lot. And we've gotten over 1,000 views in the last month. So it's been a big deal. It's been a lot of fun. And you look at the subscribers, 29 subscribers in the last 28 days. It's been huge. So, feel free to drop a comment or something down if you feel it. Just know that I take a look at those. It makes a big difference to me, and it's fun to be out here. And again, if you ever come and see me at a tournament, if you ever see me, walk up, say hi. I love to chat. It's fun to meet people. All right, let's take a look and see how the rating has turned out. All right, and our last opponent is rated 549, and we did manage to get a win, so our tournament format goes up to 2. And so we can see our performance is 1,002 and our new rating is 1108. And it actually turns out that a couple of these players are a little bit higher rated after the fact. I found that out. So our first opponent was actually 830, not 683. And this opponent, I think, is rated 630 instead of 549. So that actually moves us up to 1113. And our actual rating change is 1112. So this estimator did a pretty decent job. We just had to account for the fact that some of our opponents had stale ratings, which is fair. We also had a stale rating. On the tournament, it said that we were 1197. It just hadn't hit the central servers yet.
All right, so last round I was playing black against April Knee, and I played the black side of a Ruy Lopez, like very slow, very solid, very standard. And early on I was taking time because I do not have the line that I prefer in the Ruy Lopez memorized, and there are a lot of different things that your opponent can play. So I took time. I made sure that the moves that I played didn't blunder anything, and they didn't. And then I seemed to be getting a setup that I liked. I kept being like, well, if my opponent goes here, I'll go there. And if my opponent goes here, I'll go there. And I like where my stuff is placed. Basically, my bishops ended up being on the queen side, like aimed directly both at the center and at my opponent's king. So sort of just slicing all the way across the board. I'm sure you saw in the analysis. Sorry, I don't know why I have the hiccups here. And uh, that ended up with my opponent blundering a pawn, and then I ended up. I could have won a second pawn, but I decided instead to trade pawns in a way that forced a bunch of exchanges that left their king wide open and mine not. And then my opponent, rather than being down two pawns, instead chose to play a different king move that ended up putting her queen in a skewer. So I skewered her queen with my bishop, and then she played on. She played all the way until mate. I was very impressed by her resilience. She did a good job. Um, and she also played for stalemate tricks, which didn't work but could have worked. So that was exciting and fun. I'm feeling pretty pleased. 2 out of 4 is not the best thing in the world. I don't know what this is going to mean for my rating, but I'm sure that you saw directly after the analysis. But I feel pretty decent about it. It went all right. It was a lot of fun. It was a very good day. I really enjoyed it. Um, yeah, I don't know if I have anything else for you guys, but this was a good one. I will see you next time I have a tournament, which is hopefully sometime soon.